A number of you have reached out to me on Instagram and asked me to post something about vitamin C and maybe other supplements that might help us fight COVID-19. So this video is dedicated to vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is a vitamin that I'm well familiar with because I've been using it for the last 22 years as part of a vitamin cocktail that I give intravenously for particular conditions. But today I want to narrow the conversation about vitamin C to just what can it do for viral infections, and in particular, could it be used for COVID-19? So I can't have a conversation about vitamin C without giving you a little bit of a history lesson. So vitamin C became prominent on the national stage as well as I think the world stage because of the efforts of one man. And his name was Linus Pauling. And Linus Pauling was a very significant researcher and scientist of the 1950s, 1960s, and even the 1970s. And Dr. Pauling was one of the few individuals in the history of mankind that won 2 Nobel Prizes. He won one in chemistry, and then he also won a second one as the Nobel Peace Prize. So a very significant man who strongly advocated for vitamin C as a treatment for a number of conditions, including even cancer. Now, I don't think the science ever bore out that vitamin C was of any significant benefit in the treatment of cancer, but it remained a pretty viable conversation to be used clinically until about 1975. And what happened in 1975 was that in a major journal, the Journal of the American Medical Association, some significant researchers did a meta-analysis. In other words, they looked at a number of studies, and at the end of it all, they concluded that vitamin C was no better than placebo. In other words, you might as well have taken a sugar pill and gotten the same benefit. And after that, no one really in mainstream medicine has taken a serious look at vitamin C. But now researchers have gone back and looked at those landmark studies from 1975 that poo-pooed vitamin C, and they've come to the conclusion that there was a lot of bias and inaccuracies portrayed by the authors. Now, you might ask yourself, well, how did that happen, and why would you dismiss something that might be of benefit? Well, without sounding too pragmatic, because it was getting into the competition with something called antibiotics. And the pharmaceutical industry really wanted doctors to think about different types of antibiotics and even antiviral agents instead of vitamins in the treatment of infections. And really since 1975, that's been the case, is that mainstream medicine just doesn't think about it much. But despite that fact, there is good science available that shows that if you take fairly high doses, 4 to 6 to 8 grams of vitamin C, and I'm by no means recommending that anyone do that today, but I'm merely telling you what the research indicates, is that higher doses of vitamin C can significantly lower the longevity of infection by viruses, as well as even possibly the likelihood of getting it. In certain subgroups, people who exercise vigorously, for example, marathon runners, and in certain other minority groups like Native Americans, vitamin C has been shown to have even more powerful effects in reducing the likelihood of infection with viruses. Now, pneumonia, that's the actual lung infection with either a bacteria or a virus, is another area that we've looked at with vitamin C. And vitamin C in at least 4 studies has been shown to be significant. In other words, compared to a control arm where a placebo was administered, that vitamin C was superior in lowering the severity of a pneumonia as well as the number of days of hospitalization required to treat it. So there is ample evidence that vitamin C is of benefit in terms of the treatment of infections. Now, what is the underlying pathophysiology to explain this? Well, vitamin C, number one, is a very potent antioxidant. And we know that when you have an infection, that as a result of the activity of white cells, in particular, one type of them called phagocytes, that there's a lot of oxidative stress placed on the body. That's a lot of inflammation that in of itself is damaging to cells. And vitamin C can go in there and help reduce that oxidative stress. And so that may be one of the reasons why it's of benefit to individuals who are suffering from an infection. The other is that it actually just makes white cells perform better. Now, that's not as well quantified as to why, but we know that the vitamin C makes white cells perform better. And, you know, when you think about infection, you can't think of it as all or none. It's usually a very gradual, slippery slope between being okay and being not okay. So every little bit can help, which is why I'm a strong proponent of the use of vitamin C as both a preventative in the treatment of viral infections, as well as in the actual treatment of an individual who is suffering from a viral infection. Now, with regards to COVID-19, is there any good data available that says, hey, taking vitamin C will prevent COVID-19? The answer is no. Is there any good data that will tell us that if you do get COVID-19, that taking vitamin C will reduce the severity of it, reduce the number of days that you're out with it? I don't have that data, okay? However, there is good data to indicate that in patients that are intubated and put on a ventilator, that the use of intravenous vitamin C can reduce the number of days that they spend in the ventilator, and it can actually reduce the number of days that they spend in the ICU. And that's why in a bunch of hospitals across America right now, patients who have been intubated and who are in ICU settings are being treated with intravenous vitamin C, as well as a number of emergency rooms throughout the country. So intravenous vitamin C is something that is currently being done to try to see if we can fight COVID-19. The oral ingestion of vitamin C is something that has not been shown through any kind of data or any widespread use to be of benefit, but I would strongly recommend to you, because of its long-standing history of showing that it can make your immune cells better, it can reduce the oxidative stress, and that it has been shown to reduce the severity and the longevity of a viral infection, that it's absolutely one of the vitamins and minerals that you ought to be taking in the age of COVID. And as far as how much of it to be taking, I take personally somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 milligrams a day. Different studies have different results based on the amounts, but I would argue that the current recommended amounts, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day, may be undershooting the mark.